If you were the only Christian some non-Christian knows, would they want to be a Christian because they know you? Let's talk about it. Peanuts cartoon shows Peppermint Patty talking to Charlie Brown. She said, "Guess what, Chuck? Today was the first day of school, the very first day of school, and I got sent to the principal's office. And it's your fault, Chuck." Chuck said, "My fault? How could it be my fault? Why do you say everything is my fault?" She said, "Well, you're my friend, aren't you? You should have been a better influence on me." What Peppermint Patty was trying to do was pass the buck, of course. She has a point, I guess. We're all responsible for the influence we have on other people. We do have influence, whether good or bad, and people are watching. Heard of a minister who was in the backyard putting up a wood trellis for a vine that was growing back there. And as he was pounding away, he noticed a little neighbor boy, a little boy from next door, standing there watching him drive the nails in the trellis. The little boy didn't say anything. The minister didn't say anything, the little boy. He just stood there and watched the minister pound the nails. Finally, the minister said, "Well, are you trying to learn something about gardening?" The little boy said, "No, I'm just waiting to hear what a preacher says when he hits his thumb with a hammer." If you were the only Christian some non-Christian knows, would they want to be a Christian because they know you? What do the people see when they're around you? What do they hear when they are around you? Are you making Jesus Christ visible, attractive, irresistible? Are you really? Jesus wants his people to have a positive, effective influence. He wants his people to be different and to make a difference. His people do that. But unfortunately, today it's hard to tell the Christians from the non-Christians. It really is. G. Campbell Morgan, well-known former minister of Westminster Chapel in London, tells about a conversation he had one evening after service at the church there. A man came up and told Morgan that he had invited a co-worker with whom he had worked for 5 years to come to the church service. The man said, "I was surprised when my friend responded by saying, 'Are you a Christian?' And when I said yes, he said, 'Well, I am too.' The man said, 'Well, isn't that interesting? We'd worked together right beside each other for years, and we never knew we were both Christians. Isn't that funny?' And G. Campbell Morgan said, 'Funny? No, it isn't funny at all. It's sadly pathetic. You both need to be converted.'" Wow. It was inconceivable to Morgan that two Christians could work side by side for 5 years and not be aware of the faith they both claimed to have. How is it where you work? George Barna's research has confirmed what we already know. They just confirmed it. Today it's hard to tell Christians from non-Christians. And he's talking about the ethical and the moral differences that Christ makes in how we live and how we treat other people. When Christian teens are sexually active at the same rate as non-Christian teens, something is wrong, and the witness of the church has a problem. When Christians do the booze and the drugs at the same rate as non-Christians, something is wrong, and the witness of the church has a problem. When Christian people cheat in business, when they lie and steal, when they cheat on their spouses at the same rate as non-Christians, something is wrong, and the witness of the church has a problem. when the marriages of Christians end in divorce at the same rate as the marriages of non-Christians, something is wrong, and the witness of the church has a problem. And when Christians participate in unkind words, untrue words, unnecessary gossip, just like non-Christians, something is wrong, and the witness of the church has a problem. Wanted, contagious Christians. If you were the only Christian that some non-Christian knows, would they want to be a Christian because of you? Really? A few years ago, Huey Lewis sang a song about being aggravated by a fat man that was trying to sell salvation. Song's funny. Cynical song. Aggravated by a fat man trying to sell salvation. Lewis says he wasn't interested, and then he added sarcastically, besides, I don't want to be like you. Most people won't come right out and say it, but you better believe most people are thinking it. They're not interested in committing their life to Christ unless they have a good reason to do it. An attractive, consistent Christ-likeness that is seen in the Christians they know. Joe Aldrich wrote the book Lifestyle Evangelism, put it like this: Christians are to be good news before they share good news. Walk the walk before you start talking the talk. Be good news before they share the good news. You got to have them both. You get the example and the explanation. One without the other is insufficient. So what difference are you making? Are you contagious for Jesus? Let's look at what Jesus said here in this text and make some applications to our life. First of all, he's talking about a witness that is purifying and preserving influence, a purifying, preserving influence. Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth. In our modern, sophisticated, educated culture, we could very well miss the point of what he was making. But the people to whom Jesus spoke that day knew quite well the importance of salt. Very important. The Roman people believed that salt was very, very valuable. In fact, some Roman soldiers were paid their salary in pounds of salt. Hence, we have the phrase, so-and-so is not worth their salt. So the people listening to Jesus would have understood what Jesus meant when he said, you are the salt of the earth. They would have clearly understood that to be the salt of the earth was to be something very valuable, very essential, very important. And here's some applications that some people have made about this. Some people have said that since salt is white, it represents purity. Christians are forgiven people and should be forgiving people and washed pure by the blood of Christ. So salt is a symbol of purity. Some people have said that since salt adds flavor, Christians should add flavor to life, a zest for life, a joy for life. There's no excuse for a Christian being boring. Not an example of Jesus Christ. He was not boring, anything but boring. In fact, one of the fruits of the Spirit is joy, right? Okay, good. Where's the celebration? Yeah. Oliver Wendell Holmes, that great writer, was reported to have said that he might have become a minister instead of an educator if certain ministers he knew had not looked and acted like undertakers. What other profession do you know whose traditional dress is black? Another sermon there. Other people have said that since salt stings when it is applied to a wound, that Christians should be stingers of conscience when non-Christians are around and kind of aggravate them into knowing that they've got an infection that needs to be cured. I know a lot of people like to throw salt in wounds. Not the example of Jesus. And some have said that since salt creates thirst, that Christians should create a thirst for God in those who do not yet know Him. I like that. Create a hunger, a thirst for God. It's one of the Beatitudes, you know. I think you can summarize all these by saying that Jesus intends for Christians to have a purifying and a preserving influence wherever there are people. And the issue is the saltiness of the salt. What good is it when salt loses its potency? It's good for nothing, he says. Nothing. The late radio broadcaster J. Vernon McGee would say in his teaching that Scottish people translate the word savor by a more expressive word, tang. And he goes on to say, I like their word much better. If the salt has lost its tang. He goes on to say the problem today is that most church members have not only lost their tang as salt, but as pepper, they've also lost their pep. We have very few salt and pepper Christians today. That was J. Vernon McGee's comment. Christians are to be a preserving influence to prevent moral and spiritual decay. Why is there so much rottenness in the world? Maybe the salt has not been applied. In the book of Revelation, we see that when Christians are taken out of the world, literally all hell breaks loose. The influence of Christians in the world, taken out, all hell breaks loose. The presence of Christians restrains evil. We are to have a purifying, a preserving influence in this world. And contrary to popular opinion, people are not evolving to become better and better in our moral living. It is true we have made many advances in technology, yes, but we are still plagued by the same moral decay and our tendency to choose self-centeredness and to be deceived by a clever devil. When I read the obituaries of churches, yes, obituaries of churches. When I read about congregations that cease to exist because of discouragement, disagreement, division among the brothers and sisters of the church, that obituary is seldom the result of someone from the outside of the congregation coming in and destroying and attacking the church. The death of that church is usually a result of Christians who take their eyes off of Jesus. Christians who start letting Satan influence their attitudes and Satan influence their actions towards other people. They lose the joy of the Lord. They take their eyes off the Lord. They become divided, discouraged, diverted in their energies, and soon the church dies.